Welcome back to Planet Doug, and fair warning, this is going to be another very technical video in which I'm talking about the Insta360 One X2 camera. I already recorded one fairly lengthy video where I talked about all the things about this camera that I liked and some of the things that I felt could be improved. But in that video, I think I was focusing on the big topics. And since I recorded that video, I've used the camera quite a bit more, and I've uncovered a lot of small things that I like, and I wanted to talk about those small things in particular. I mean, in the world of cameras and technology in general, in my experience, reviewers talk about big things and ignore the little ones, and yet in your actual experience of that device or that camera, a very small thing can make a big difference in terms of the user experience. And I find that's very true of cameras like the GoPro and the Insta360 One X2. But just to review a little bit to start, I'm going to go over the points I made in the first video, the big things, and I was focusing in that video on this camera from the point of view of whether someone out there who's thinking about buying this camera, should you buy this camera or not? And I want to help you make that decision. And when you look at this camera from that point of view, the biggest advantage is the most obvious one. It shoots 360 video. And it seems obvious to say that, but when you see a lot of the video on YouTube that was shot with this camera and they call it 360 video, it really isn't 360 video anymore. It was shot as 360 video, but then they reframe it and export it and post it as regular 2D flat video. So it really isn't 360 video anymore. So if you're just going to be posting flat video anyway, why get a 360 camera? You know, why not get a GoPro or something else? But 360 video is very interesting because even if you don't even if you don't upload true 360, surround VR video, the camera is always recording 360 video. And you as the editor, you have all the advantages of editing that 360 video. So as I edit the video and I'm making flat 2D video, I'm in the world of 3D and I'm aiming the camera in all sorts of different directions, and that's something you can never do with a regular camera. So the biggest advantage of this camera is that it shoots 360 video. And that one advantage might outweigh 100 disadvantages. I can probably list 100 things about this camera that I don't like, but maybe the fact that it just shoots 360 video outweighs all of that and still makes it a good choice. I certainly love using it. But setting that aside, in terms of the camera itself, in the previous video I pointed out that I love the form factor, small, lightweight, very solid in the hands. I love the convenience of the tripod thread on the bottom. In terms of mounting it, it's as simple as what I'm doing right now. I'm all done. And that is such a relief after years of working with GoPro mounts and GoPro adapters and GoPro cages, and that whole world of GoPro mounting system is very handy. It's very flexible, but it can get overwhelming at times. And I'm really enjoying the simplicity of this. I screw it on there, extend the pole, and I'm good to go. In my original video, I also pointed out that I'm a big fan of the battery compartment. The batteries have each battery has its own door attached. It's not a separate battery that you remove and then the door remains on the camera. The battery and the door are one, and it's held in place by two simple clips. You push in those clips, spring-loaded, and the battery pops right out. And the door is attached to the battery. So you grab your new battery, your fresh recharged one, put it back into that slot, clicks into place, and you're done. So I think that is a brilliant system. So those are basically the things that I like about this camera. In the previous video, I talked about a few issues with the camera. One I found is that the record button and the power button are difficult to find by touch. They're very smooth and they're not textured in any way, so I find it difficult to find them when I'm moving in a hurry. And that's particularly important if you're recording on the scooter, because the camera is far away from you. You're not holding it and you want to reach up and just hit the power button. But you don't want to take your eyes off the road or whatever it is you're looking at, assuming you're not driving. It's still hard to find that button. And the power button itself is also very stiff. It takes a lot of force to press down on it. I also feel like the touch screen could use a lot of refinement and improvement. It's not that responsive, so I find myself tapping it a lot and swiping a lot and nothing happens, and I have to repeat the swiping motion to get it to work. Because to access all the video, all the menu systems and all the settings, it's a swiping system. You swipe down, swipe up, swipe left, and swipe right, of course. And the screen does not always respond the first time you swipe, and then you have to do it again a third time to finally get it to react. And the camera sometimes is not that responsive, so you might click on something, for example, to replay a video. You want to watch the video on the screen. You hit the play button and nothing happens, and you think you have to hit the play button again, but all that's happening is it just takes a long time for the camera to respond. So I find myself hitting the play button, nothing happens. I think I have to hit it again, so I hit the play button a second time, but in fact all I've done is now hit the pause button. So I end up hitting play, pause, and I'm like, why isn't it, So it's not quite as snappy as it could be, not quite as responsive as it could be. And I do find the menu systems to be a little bit non-intuitive. With a GoPro or any of my other cameras, tell me to do something, like Doug, dial in some exposure compensation, I can do it in my sleep. I pick up the camera, click, boop, exposure comp. This one, I always have to stop and think. It's like, oh, exposure, okay, no, where is, there's something odd about the way the menu system is structured, where the different settings are located in which menus. I couldn't tell you exactly what the problem is. Menu design is a real art form, I find, and it takes a long time to get it right. And in this menu system, it's just a little bit, I'm always tilting my head. It's like, okay, what am I doing here? Am I changing the mode, or am I am I changing the settings for that mode? Where am I exactly? And I've made a lot of mistakes where I went into a menu thinking I was changing it to a different mode, but I wasn't. I was only changing the settings for that mode. I had to go to another menu to actually change to a different mode, if that makes any sense to you at all. Anyway, from my point of view, the menu system is a little bit non-intuitive, and even the control system, the way it works, I don't think I've ever seen anything like this before. It will give you 2 columns, and each column moves up and down. So you have to choose the area where you want to alter the settings first, and then the column on the left moves up and down to change the settings for that item, which is in the other column. And it's like, man, it's like, how does this work exactly? And then some of the symbols are a bit confusing. The wording in English is a little bit confusing and a little bit inaccurate sometimes, a little bit inconsistent. So there are some issues surrounding the touch screen and the menu system itself. In my first video, I also talked about the door that covers up the USB-C port. I feel like that could be improved. It's a little bit fiddly to get it out, to unlock it. It's not as responsive as the battery door. Like, it's not spring-loaded or anything, and I find I have to fight with it a little bit to get it open. And then the door itself is held in place by a little plastic thread, and it just feels a little bit flimsy. And if you want to attach the microphone adapter to plug in an external microphone, which I always want to do, this has to be removed completely, and you have to pull it out. You have to unplug this little thread, and now you've got this tiny door that you have to keep safe and find a place to put it. And as I've said a couple of times in videos already, I'm fairly certain a lot of people lose that door. So far, I've been lucky. I have not lost it. So the door, I think, should be attached by a hinge system, so that it remains in place even when you open it up. You shouldn't have to remove it entirely. And I'm sure the One X3, the new version, if and when it comes out, it will have a new door design, I think. I think you'll see a lot of improvements to this camera. In my previous video, I talked quite a bit about the app, because for this camera in particular, more than any other camera I've worked with, you can't really think of the camera as just a camera. It is wedded to the 360 app. They work together. They're really one unit. You can't talk about the camera being good or bad without talking about the app being good or bad and how they relate to each other. I mean, a normal camera, you can shoot video and the video is recorded on the memory card, and then you can do whatever you want with that video. You can import it into any editing app you want. You're totally free of the app that comes with the camera. Like a GoPro, for example, does have an app. There's a GoPro camera and a GoPro app. I've never used it. I don't need it. So the app for me is irrelevant. For this camera, the app is very relevant. It's extremely important, maybe even more important than the camera itself. And there are some significant problems with the app from many points of view. And I don't want to talk about this for too long because there are too many issues to talk about. But the first one I ran into was one of file management. That's the biggest problem, because the app, of course, is loaded onto your smartphone. That's where the app lives. And normally you would, once you're done filming, you connect the phone to your camera wirelessly, and then you initiate a wireless transfer, and all the files are copied to your phone. Though, importantly, you can also edit directly on the phone as well. I don't do that because I tend to shoot a lot of video and it's slower to do it that way. It's slower if you edit while keeping the video on the camera. I prefer to copy them all to my phone first, and then editing on the phone is a smoother experience. But if you had small files and relatively few, you don't even have to transfer them. You can just open up your phone and all the video stored on the camera will show up on your phone, and you can edit them in the app. So that's not a big issue. But for me, I copy and paste. I take out the memory card, put it in a memory card reader, attach it to the phone, and then I manually copy the files over. And then I run into some issues, quite a few issues, because once you are in the Insta360 app, let me open it up here on my phone, right away you notice that in 360 videos, the thumbnails are not very informative. And that kind of makes sense because you're dealing with 360 video. And I think in a normal system with a straight ahead 2D video, they're very good at picking a thumbnail that represents what is in the video. It just seems to happen naturally. But with 360 video, where you're dealing with video taken in all directions, 90% of the time you end up with a thumbnail and you can't tell from the thumbnail what's in the video, because it's probably just a picture of empty sky or the ground, or just a blank set of trees or something. It doesn't focus on the subject of the video. So the thumbnails don't help you. You can't create any folders of your own, so you're not allowed to create folders and organize your own video by subject or by day or anything like that. It shows them to you by day in the app automatically, and that's all you can do. Plus, the app has no way to access the micro SD card in your phone. You can only use the phone's internal memory. And I know a lot of people struggle with memory to begin with. Just running your phone and running all the apps you want to run and taking photos and downloading offline maps, doing all these things, it already fills up your memory. So most people have very little memory left over, and if that's the case, you will have a great deal of difficulty running this app, because in my case, I want to copy over 40 gigabytes worth of video files. And then when I export the final video, that final video can be 30 gigabytes in size. These 360 videos are huge. So suddenly I need 70 gigabytes of free memory on my phone. And who has that? I had to work very hard to clear up that much memory. And it would be a great convenience if I could just tell the program, store everything on the micro SD card. You know, just head down to Best Buy or wherever you are, get a 1 terabyte micro SD card, slap it in, and you're good to go. But all that, you know, expandable storage is of no use at the moment to the Insta360 system because the app can't use it. Can't store files on it, like original files, can't export to it. Plus, when you export your final video, you're not allowed to name it. The system gives it a name automatically, and that can lead to confusion, overwriting old files by accident. There's no way to save edits in the main editing app where you're editing a 360 video. You do all this editing work, and then you export it, and there it is. But maybe you want to do something new, try a different approach. In a normal editing program, you save your first version as a project, and then you create a new project and do a whole new series of edits. But in this, you can't do that in this system. It's impossible. So as soon as you've finished editing a file and exporting it, if you want to make any changes, by necessity, you have to wipe out all your work and start over again. You can't save it as a project and then start fresh with new projects over and over again, which is a huge oversight on the part of Insta360. So those are just a few of the problems that I have, you know, with the file management system. And the apps themselves are quite confusing. The editing apps. In Insta360, you have 3 of them. There's the main one that you get, like if you just click on a video, it opens up, and it opens up in full 360 mode, and it has almost no features at all. You can reframe the video. You can apply some of the fancy AI effects that they provide, which are a lot of fun and kind of interesting. You can do a couple of things, but in terms of even basic edits, there's nothing there. You can't add an audio track. You can't trim out sections of the video from the middle. You can't take multiple video clips and put them together, which is kind of crazy that you can't do that. But they have a second editor, the story editor, and in the story editor, it expands a little bit. You can add your own audio track. You can put multiple clips together. You can edit out sections from the middle of clips. But the kicker is, in the story editor, you can't export 360 video. So think about that for a minute. You've got one editor, which has no editing power at all. It can export full 360 VR video, but they give you another editor that has all the editing feature, but that one can't export 360 video. It can only edit and export reframed flat video. So it's just like neither one works for me. Like neither option works. It's kind of weird. The third option is the desktop app or the laptop app. They call that Insta360 Studio. And this is touted as their big, editing program that you use on your computer. Yet in an odd twist, it is less powerful than probably both of them on your phone. It has very, very few features. You can't do anything with audio, for example. You can't add an audio track, which is the simplest thing imaginable. Yeah, it's just weird. And every editing app is different. So there are variations between them. This one can do this, but this one can't. This one can do something that one can't. This one can do 360 video. This one can only do 2D flat video. It's just, you're jumping from one to the other to the other. The Studio app on your computer has no access to any of the AI special effects that 360 is famous for. They call these the Shot Lab. There's a whole range of these very crazy themes and AI-driven programs that you can apply to your video, which creates a lot of very cool effects. And they use those Shot Lab effects in their marketing to say, wow, you should buy our camera because it can do all these crazy things. But then as soon as you open up the editing program on your laptop and you start getting to work, it's like, well, where are all those Shot Lab themes? They're not there. They're only on the phone. And on top of that, the Android app is different from the iOS app. You know, for iPhones, the app has different features that this one doesn't have. And you end up you're online asking people, it's like, how do I do this on my phone? And someone says, oh, you just go here, do this, do that. And you're like, I don't have that. Where do you see that? And you're talking back and forth with this person. It turns out they're on an iPhone, you're on an Android, and you're speaking different languages. I mean, they are similar, but there are significant differences. So these are the things that I was talking about in my first video. I'm basically just repeating myself here, and I'm going very fast because, as I said, I've talked about all these things in depth before, and I think I even demonstrated a few of these things. So that's the review from my big topics look at the Insta360 One X2. Now I'm going to switch into the small things, and these are, for the most part, things that I really, really like, that, as far as I can tell, nobody else ever talks about, and that make my user experience of the camera much, much better. These are small things, but I think very powerful. I said all of these are going to be small things, but a couple are big things. And I'm going to start with one of those, but pay attention, because I think you're going to hear about things in this video that you're not going to hear from anywhere else. Even with the big things, I think I can give you a bit of information that you're not going to hear anywhere else. So one of the big things is what they call flow state stabilization. That's their, stabilization system. And we're used to, the amazing stabilization that we get in a GoPro, the DJI Pocket 2, a lot of, the smaller action cameras. They all have incredible stabilization, and I'm happy to say that the Insta360 One X2 is the same, if not superior. They call it, as I said, flow state stabilization, and it is really good. It's incredibly smooth, and from my experience, it tends to be better than what I see even from my GoPro. The main jittery stabilization is just as good. It's about the same. But in terms of a walking up and down motion that you get if you're holding the camera, it seems to reduce it more than my GoPro does. But in any event, you don't have to worry about the stabilization. Flow state is excellent. And something to note is that the stabilization is not really in the camera. I mean, the camera isn't doing any stabilizing. It's digital. It's all in the software. So when you go into your video and you open it in the app, you can find the setting for flow state stabilization, and you can turn it on and off in the app. It's not part of the video, right? With a GoPro, it's also digital stabilization, but it's kind of hard baked right into the video itself, because this stabilization is being applied as the camera is recording. But this is different because all of this stuff is not being applied to the video until you open it up in the app. And then you can turn stabilization on or off if you wish. And there are many reasons why you would want to turn it off. So it is a very important, feature to have. It's a little slider switch, turn it on, turn it off. So that's, flow state stabilization is excellent. The next feature I'm going to talk about is something that I guess is a small feature, but it is extremely important, and it's also quite difficult to understand. So see if you can hang in there with me. It's going to take a little bit of explaining, and to be honest, I didn't understand it at all until I tried it out for myself and I tested it, and then the light bulb went off. It was like, oh, that's how it works. And until you see it for yourself, it might be difficult to grasp, or you're a lot smarter than me and you'll understand it instantly, but I had a lot of trouble with it. So that's why I'm going to talk about it now. And this feature is called direction lock. And direction lock is similar to flow state stabilization in that it has nothing to do with the camera or the video itself. It controls the video inside the app, if you see what I mean. And that's one of the big advantages of 360 cameras in terms of the simplicity of using them to shoot video, because a lot of the decisions you make with a GoPro or a regular camera, you have to make those decisions about the settings before you shoot the video, because they're recorded in the video. But with 360 video, a lot of these settings are irrelevant when you shoot the video, because it is recording the entire world all the time, and they only come into effect in the editing program. So, you know, shooting video is easy as hitting the record button. Record, shoot video. You don't have to worry about anything, because you have to start worrying about it when you get to the editing program after you shoot the video, which is kind of an important distinction between this and a traditional camera. So, hang in there with me. When direction lock is set to on, the video you're seeing in your editing app, you know, as you're reviewing and editing the video, it follows where the camera is pointing. So you're editing the video and you choose a direction in the editing screen, and then as you're out there in the real world and you're moving the camera, the direction of the perspective you're seeing in the editing program changes as the camera is moving. So if I'm walking in this direction towards you, and then I turn to the left and start walking in that direction, the point of view of the camera changes with me. It follows that motion. And sometimes you want that, and sometimes you don't. If you don't want that, then you turn direction lock off. And then what happens is very interesting, that the direction that the video is pointing, that technically the camera is pointing, is locked to the compass of the world. Whatever the compass point is where the camera angle was pointing in the video, it stays locked on that point. So for example, I've turned direction lock off, and I'm walking towards you, you know, filming with my 360 camera, and it's looking at you, but then I physically turn to the left and walk in this direction, but the point of view of the camera continues in that direction and continues to point. If that's the north and I've turned to the west, you don't see that in the video. The camera continues to point to the north, even though I physically in the real world turn to the west. See what I mean? See, I don't know if you can grasp that, but anyway, that is direction lock. It is in the app, not in the camera. You don't have to do anything about it while you're shooting video. It's only when you're editing video, and you'll see it in the video. It might be doing something weird that you don't like. It's like, what is it doing? And direction lock. Turn it on or off, and you might get the result that you're looking for. Yeah, it's a fascinating little feature. Moving right along, I had to switch cameras. I was using the DJI Pocket 2 to record that first part, and the battery died. And speaking of cameras and camera issues, a big problem with the DJI Pocket 2 is it doesn't have a replaceable battery. Once the battery is dead, you're done recording. You can't just slap in a new battery. And I've learned that with the Pocket 2, you can't plug in an external power source and just run it off of, a wall socket or something and keep recording. It won't record while it's recharging. Anyway, that's what's going on there. And I've switched to my Panasonic G85. So, next feature is another small one and a much more familiar one to most people, but I'm very, very happy that it's on this camera because I find it so useful. If a camera doesn't have this feature, it can kind of drive me crazy, especially an action camera like this, and that is quick capture. And for those who don't know what that is, with quick capture, you don't have to turn the camera on to start recording. You can do it only with the record button. So right now, my One X2 is off, completely shut down, and now I want to start recording. Normally, you have to turn on the power, wait for it to power up. Once it's good to go, then you hit the record button, and now you're recording. But with quick capture, you can go straight to recording. You hit record, the camera will turn on, it will power up, it just powered up, and once it's up and running, it starts recording. So I can turn the camera on and start recording by pressing one button. And that's particularly important with a camera like this because it is often, you know, sitting on a scooter or something like that, and you don't want to go through the hassle of trying to find the power button, pressing in the power button, seeing that it's on, waiting for it to power up. Once it's up, now you press the record button. It's so much faster, more convenient, and safer in many situations just to hit the record button. And with quick capture, you don't even have to turn the camera off. You just hit the record button again, stops recording, and then the camera powers down. So quick capture, very small feature, but very useful that this camera does have. I'm very happy to report. Next feature, equally small, equally really important and useful, and I didn't even understand how useful it was until quite recently. And that feature is horizon lock. So this camera has horizon lock, and interestingly, it's another setting, another feature that you never have to worry about. You're going to hear me talk about it, and you'll never have to think about it again because you don't turn it on and you don't turn it off. It's just part of the way the camera works. The horizon is always locked. And it has to be that way because it's a 360 camera. It's recording everything in every direction. So in a way, horizon is kind of irrelevant until you get into the editing program and then it locks it. And I discovered how important this was. I was at a park recently walking along a sky bridge, and I thought, I wonder if I can film underneath the sky bridge below me, like you're standing on any kind of a bridge, then you want to film underneath the bridge. So you extend your selfie stick and then you lower the camera below you, as far as it will go below the bridge to get this incredible angle from down there. And I was thinking, but now the video is going to be upside down because I've turned the camera upside down and lowered it. So, that's not going to be good. Because now I'm going to have to go into the editing program and fiddle around, and no, you don't have to do that. In fact, it's even more amazing than that because, when the camera is like this and now you want to make it upside down, you're actually turning it through 180 degrees until it is upside down and then you lower it. But with this camera, no matter what you do with it, it's always horizon locked. So even as I'm spinning it, everything in the editing program, to the viewer, to me as the editor, everything is exactly the same. Nothing happens as I turn the camera around and then I lower it. So it actually just looks like I'm holding the camera upright and then lowering it down. Like as far as the video is concerned, that's what's happening. It's here and then now it's being lowered but staying exactly level. So yeah, it's really kind of cool. So that is horizon lock, and it's really important for a camera like this because you try to do so many unusual things with it, but no matter what you do, the video stays perfect. Very cool. Something else that this camera has, kind of a small feature, but I guess kind of a big one, but it's very important to know about. And to understand this feature, you have to understand two different modes. So this is a 360 camera, but it actually has a 360 mode, which is the normal mode. Whenever you're just using the camera normally, 90% of the time, probably, you're just shooting 360 video, and they call that 360 mode. It uses both lenses, of course, is recording the entire world, and then it stitches the image from those two lenses together as seamlessly as possible. That is 360 mode. But it also has what they call steady cam mode. And I have a big problem with this name because Steadicam mode sounds like you're turning on stabilization, you know, like you've turned it into a Steadicam, and before that it wasn't a Steadicam, but it's always a Steadicam because it has, you know, flow state stabilization. So I don't like the name Steadicam, but like Steadicam mode, but that's the mode they use. So there's 360 mode, which is normal, and then there's Steadicam mode. And you enter Steadicam mode from the touchscreen. So you click when the camera is on, you touch the screen, all the menu stuff shows up, and on the left side there's a circle that says 360 on it with 2 arrows. And if I click on that, it automatically switches into Steadicam mode. And Steadicam mode means instead of using 2 lenses, it's only using 1 lens. So you're not shooting in 360 degrees anymore. You've basically turned it into a normal camera, with a few exceptions. But basically, when you go into Steadicam mode, you've essentially taken your Insta360 and you've turned it into a GoPro. It's basically a small, lightweight camera with excellent stabilization, shooting from 1 lens. A couple of key features, though, about Steadicam mode. Like, well, first of all, why would you use it? I mean, you would use it for vlogging, right? Now you're holding it like this, just like you'd hold a GoPro, and now the lens is facing directly towards you. And you don't have to worry about 360, you don't have to worry about all the weird things about 360 video. Suddenly you basically have a regular camera, and it's pointing at me, and then I can turn it around and aim it at different things, you know, and I can use it like a regular camera. But it has a couple of tricks. One trick is that it shoots in 150 degrees, and that is wide. And interestingly, it shoots at 1440p when it's in Steadicam mode. And that's an important distinction. And that's the maximum resolution you can get in Steadicam mode. Finally, an interesting part about Steadicam mode is that when you're in there, you'll get another circle on the screen with 2 arrows. And essentially what that does is switch which lens you're using. So if I want to record, you know, facing me, I select this lens. But maybe I want to film away from me, I hit that button, and now I've switched to the other lens, and it's facing in the other direction, which is very interesting, very, very useful. One important thing to note, though, is that switching lenses only works before you hit record. So I have to decide now, you know, do I want to use this lens, or do I want to use that lens? And then I choose, like right now, I've chosen the lens facing me. I'm now recording. It's a very, very wide image. And now I'm recording me. But now I can't switch mid-recording to the other lens. Of course, I can film in the other direction. All I have to do is turn the camera around. So now I'm filming my Panasonic, and I'm filming out there, and then I can turn it around again to film me. But I can't do that just by switching lenses. If I want to do that, I have to stop recording, hit the button, switch lenses, and then start recording again. And that's a small thing, but it's something to be aware of. So that was Steadicam mode, or think of it as vlogging mode, or maybe even GoPro mode. You know, that makes more sense to me than Steadicam mode. And I mentioned that you use this button to switch from lens to lens. But this button on the front is very useful even in 360 mode. It took me a long time to figure this out, and it's very useful because when you're looking at 360 video on the camera screen, you get lost sometimes. You know, the camera might be aiming like in some weird direction, and you're trying to see what's in front of you, and you want to kind of check exposure or something, and you're trying to move around within the 360 degrees, and it's like, what am I looking at? And it gets really confusing. But you don't have to do all that because this button centers the view. Small but very important. I use this feature all the time. Like while you're filming, this camera can end up pointing in all kinds of goofy directions. Instead of fighting with it, touch the screen, touch that button, boom. It centers it, and then while you're in 360 mode, it will also change the view from straight ahead on this lens to straight ahead on this lens. Follow me there? It's really kind of interesting, but the thing to note is when you see that little button on the front with the two arrows on it, just touch it once in a while and see what happens. It's like, it switches lenses and centers. And that can save you all kinds of trouble because it's so easy to get lost in the world of 360 video. So it's good to know. A couple more things to mention before I wind this up. A couple more small but very powerful features. Again, you're not going to hear about these features anywhere else. You're only going to hear about them on Planet Doug in this video. I've watched tons of reviews about this camera, and no one has ever mentioned any of these things that I'm talking about. And this last one is very interesting and very powerful, and it involves reviewing video on the touchscreen. So you're out there filming, and you're filming all day, and you want to make sure the camera is working, and you want to see what you're recording, and you can do that with this camera. So you touch the screen, swipe to the right, and now you can see all of your videos that are on, the memory card, and you can swipe down through the screens, find one that you want to review, click on it, hit play, and that video starts to play in the screen. And you can look at it, you can listen to it, though I must say that this speaker is quite muffled, it's distorted. It's not a good speaker. You can't really rely on it to judge sound quality. So that's kind of a problem with the camera as well. They really need to improve that speaker. So now you've got your video playing, but it could be a 10 or 15 minute video clip. And you don't want to see the beginning. You want to see the end of the video. Like, what was the last thing you said in your vlog? So in your next clip, you can pick up where you left off. On a normal camera like my Panasonic G85, it's a nightmare. Like, you can't do it. Like, how do you get to the end of the video clip in playback? But GoPro and the Insta360 both have a very powerful tool that every camera in the world should have. It has a scrubbing tool. And with the scrubbing tool, you can quickly move backwards and forwards through the video. And until you use this, you have no idea how useful it is. And then when you don't have access to it, it drives you crazy. On the GoPro, the way the scrubbing tool works is you turn it on, and then it opens up a line with a big blue circle on it, and all you do is touch the screen, and you move the circle back and forth along the line, and you just like zip, zip, zip through the video as fast as you want, and you can go anywhere you want instantly. On the Insta360, it also has this scrubbing tool, but instead of a line, you'll notice that when you play back the video, there's a circle, a white line going all the way around the video on the edge of the screen. And as the video plays, you can see a blue line is starting to form. And that blue line is your scrubbing tool. So you touch the screen, and then you just move your finger around in a circle. And now I've gone all the way to the end of the video. I want to see what's happening in the middle of the video. I just touch the screen, move the blue line. Now I'm halfway through the video. So the scrubbing tool, you can just move anywhere you want within your video as you're reviewing it. Very powerful tool, very useful one. And as I said, it never comes up when people talk about this camera. It's a small thing, a scrubbing tool. And I think a lot of people own this camera, and they see that blue line around their video all the time, and they have no idea what it is. Just touch it with your finger, move around in a circle, and see what happens, and you'll be moving around your video just as efficiently as you could want. Scrubbing tool, amazing feature. Two more quick features. The first one is also about, reviewing videos on the touch screen of the camera itself. Very small thing, but very good to know, is that when you play the video, as I mentioned, you hear the audio on the speaker. And it's not great audio, but you can hear the audio. But you might be in a very quiet environment, inside a quiet restaurant or something, and you don't want to disturb people around you. So video playback has a mute button. So you just touch the screen, and there's a little speaker symbol, and you can use that, temporarily mute the audio for playback. So now I can review the video, but I don't have any audio playing, and I want to hear audio again. I just touch the mute button, and there's the audio again. So very useful mute button on the touch screen in video playback. I love that. The last feature I'm going to talk about is not related to just the camera, but it's about the combination of the camera and the smartphone app. And as I mentioned earlier, you can copy your video clips from the camera to your phone and edit them on your phone. You store them in the phone's memory, and that's the preferred way to do it because it's just faster to edit on your phone when the videos are in your phone's internal memory. But you don't have to. You can use your smartphone app to edit the videos while they stay only on the camera's memory card. And even though I don't normally do that, I do it once in a while just for convenience, particularly when I'm testing the camera, because I want to try out a whole bunch of different things and see what I can do in the editing app, but I don't want to stop whatever I'm doing, transfer the video over, and then work on it. That's a very long process. But it's very, very fast. It's a very fast process what happens. I'll see if I can demonstrate it right now. Like right now I have the camera and the phone connected. They're connected right now. So on my phone I can see all the video clips that are on my phone and are on the camera at the same time. So what I'm going to do is just record a video right now. Just turn on the camera. I'm recording the camera, actually. I'm using the 360 camera. I'm recording in 360 mode. So I'm just recording a few seconds right now. I stop recording and watch what happens on the screen of the phone. Stop recording. There it is. Popped right up. So that is the new video that I just recorded. It wasn't copied to the phone, but it registered on the phone. So if I do that again, just for fun, I can show it to you one more time in case that wasn't clear. So you notice there's a line of 3 videos at the top. I just started recording again. I'm going to record a few seconds, stop recording, and wait for a second, and boom, there it is there. Brand new video just showed up on my phone, and then I can open it. It's loading, and there it is. There's the video that I just shot, and I can edit it on the phone. Even though it's still on the camera, I'm editing it on my phone, and that system works very well, very fast, very responsive, and very, very useful. So that is it for today. All of the big and small things that I've learned about this camera in the last couple of weeks that I've been using. And in particular, as I said, I was so pleased to find all these small features, small tools that are available on this camera that turn out to be incredibly useful. Probably the best example for me is that scrubbing tool on video playback. I kind of discovered it by accident because I hadn't read about it anywhere, and in all the video reviews that I've watched, nobody ever mentioned it, but I kept seeing that blue line. I thought, what the heck is that? And I started spinning it. It's like, oh, scrubbing tool. Love that. And there are quite a few features built into this camera that are small but very useful. That's it. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.